The year was 1696. While European kings carved up the world with blood and gold, something extraordinary was happening in the forgotten corners of the Indian Ocean. Two unlikely revolutionaries were about to create history's most radical experiment, a pirate nation where all men were truly equal. This is the lost story of Libertatia, the democratic republic that existed decades before America's founding fathers ever dreamed of freedom. Captain James Misson was no ordinary pirate. Born into French nobility, he had received the finest education money could buy. But wealth and privilege couldn't satisfy his restless spirit. He craved adventure on the high seas, yet his philosophical mind questioned everything. The divine right of kings, the brutality of slavery, the endless wars for empire. Unlike other pirates who sought only treasure, Misson began to dream of something far more valuable: true freedom. Fate brought Misson together with Caraccioli, an Italian Dominican friar whose fire and brimstone sermons had gotten him exiled from Rome. But Caraccioli preached a radical gospel that all men were created equal in God's eyes, regardless of birth, race, or station. When these two intellectual revolutionaries met aboard Misson's warship, the Victoire, their conversations would change the course of history. Together, they began to envision a society free from the chains of monarchy and slavery. As the Victoire sailed the Caribbean, Misson and Caraccioli's discussions grew more radical. They questioned why some men should live in luxury while others suffered in chains. Why should kings rule by divine right when they proved themselves no better than common thieves? Their crew listened, fascinated by these dangerous ideas. Slowly, a new vision emerged. What if they stopped plundering for personal gain and instead created something entirely new? The turning point came when they encountered a slave ship. Instead of the usual raid for treasure, Misson and Caraccioli made a radical choice. They freed every enslaved person aboard and offered them something unprecedented. Not just freedom, but full citizenship in a new nation they would build together. The former slaves, the crew, even captured enemies who embraced their cause, all became equals in this floating republic. Their destination: Madagascar. Madagascar was perfect for their grand experiment. This massive island off Africa's east coast was largely unexplored by Europeans, with hidden bays and fertile valleys ideal for a new colony. As the Victoire sailed across the Indian Ocean, excitement built among the diverse crew. They weren't just sailing toward an island, they were sailing toward the future, carrying the seeds of a revolutionary society that would challenge every assumption about power, race, and government. In a secluded bay on Madagascar's coast, they found their paradise. The settlement they built was unlike anything the world had ever seen. They called it Libertatia, land of the free. Here, there were no kings, no nobles, no slaves. Every decision was made by democratic vote. They elected their own leaders, including Misson as their first president. Private property was abolished. All wealth was shared equally so no citizen would know want, while others lived in luxury. Libertatia needed a symbol, and they chose one that shocked the world: a pure white flag. While other nations flew complex heraldry representing kings and conquest, Libertatia's white banner represented their clean break from the corrupt old world. It symbolized their commitment to peace, equality, and starting fresh. Under this white flag, former slaves stood as equals beside former nobles, united in their shared dream of true freedom. Life in Libertatia was remarkable for its equality and cooperation. Citizens worked together in the fields and workshops, sharing both labor and rewards. They established schools where all children, regardless of background, learned to read, write, and think critically. Former pirates became farmers and craftsmen. Freed slaves became teachers and leaders. The community thrived on principles of mutual aid and democratic participation that wouldn't be seen again until the American Revolution decades later. Word of Libertatia's success spread across the Indian Ocean. Ships began arriving not to attack, but to trade and even join the Republic. The settlement grew from a small coastal colony to a thriving port city. Their success proved that a society based on equality could not only survive, but flourish. Libertatia became a beacon of hope for escaped slaves, political refugees, and anyone seeking a life free from the oppression of kings and masters. But paradise faced growing threats. European colonial powers viewed Libertatia as a dangerous example that might inspire their own oppressed subjects to rebel. Slave traders lost valuable cargo to Libertatia's liberation missions. Most dangerous of all, local Malagasy tribes began to see the growing settlement as a threat to their own territorial control. Dark clouds were gathering around the young republic, and violence seemed inevitable. The attacks began as raids on outlying farms and trading posts. Libertatia's citizens, many former pirates skilled in combat, organized militias to defend their homeland. But they faced a terrible dilemma. How could a society built on equality and peace defend itself without becoming the very thing they had rejected? The philosophical debates that once filled peaceful evenings now centered on matters of life and death. The end came swiftly and brutally. A massive confederation of tribal warriors, possibly aided by European agents, launched a coordinated assault on Libertatia. Despite brave resistance, the colonists were overwhelmed. Captain Misson was killed in the fighting, dying for the principles he had lived by. The white flag of Libertatia fell, and with it, humanity's first experiment in true democratic equality was lost to history. Those who survived the destruction scattered across the Indian Ocean. Some returned to piracy, others found refuge in other colonies, and a few may have carried Libertatia's ideals to distant shores. Caraccioli and other leaders vanished into legend. The physical settlement was destroyed, but the ideas they had proven possible, democracy, equality, freedom, could never be completely erased from human memory. The story of Libertatia comes to us primarily through Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724. Some historians debate whether Libertatia existed exactly as described, or whether it was partly legend designed to inspire. But archaeological evidence and historical records suggest that something extraordinary did happen on Madagascar's shores, a revolutionary experiment that challenged everything the world believed about human society. Whether completely factual or partially legendary, Libertatia's story captured imaginations across Europe and the American colonies. The idea that ordinary people could govern themselves, that all races could live as equals, that private property wasn't sacred, these radical concepts would resurface decades later in the writings of revolutionary thinkers and the founding documents of new nations. Today, Libertatia's legacy lives on wherever people fight for equality and democratic rights. From the American Revolution to modern civil rights movements, the dream that began in a hidden bay on Madagascar continues to inspire. Perhaps that was always Libertatia's true treasure, not gold or silver, but the proof that a better world is possible when people dare to dream and act on their highest ideals. As you explore the mysteries of Libertatia, ask yourself this: if a group of 17th century pirates could create a society of equals, what's stopping us today? Their experiment may have lasted only a few years, but the questions they raised about freedom, equality, and human dignity remain as urgent now as they were 3 centuries ago. The white flag of Libertatia still waves in the dreams of all who believe humanity can do better.